Hi and welcome back to Terry Talks Movies. This time around, as promised, I'm doing the science fiction movies that I love. I've done the ones I hate, now I'm going to do 15 science fiction movies that I love. So let's get started. First one's A Vulgar Pleasure. It's from 1974 and it's a satire on a classic science fiction movie serial from the 1930s. It is the movie Flash Gordon, starring Jason Williams and Suzanne Fields. It's a direct pastiche of the old Flash Gordon movie serials starring Buster Crabbe, and it's a lot of fun. I actually went to the premiere of Flash Gordon in Australia. It was at a midnight session on a Saturday night at the Academy Twin Cinemas in Paddington in Sydney. And I got one of the movie posters at the time. I wish I still had that George Barr movie poster because it's a really nice looking piece of movie memorabilia. But unfortunately, over the years, I lost it. I love so many things about this movie. I like Flexi Jerkoff's spaceship. I like the monsters that Flesh and Dale find in the sewers below the palace of Emperor Wang. I like all of it. I like the stop-motion monster at the end of the movie. I like Prince Precious and his gay friends who live in the forests of the planet Porno. I like the fact they got John Hoyt from When Worlds Collide playing Flash Gordon's father in the movie. Terrific production value. And the lovely thing is that in the 1970s, there were adult films that had great production values. There were so many of them. They did versions of Pygmalion, they did musicals, they did comedies, they did dramas, all sorts of things, until video came along and kind of diminished the need for emulating real cinema in the adult film industry. But Flash Gordon works as science fiction, it works as satire. And for me, it's a movie I love because it is transgressive, but it is tongue-in-cheek, silly, and it's got some great production design, great production value, and great special effects as well. So we go from 1974 to 1997 for number 2, and that is Andrew Nicole's Gattaca. Gattaca I like a lot because it's rock-solid science fiction speculation. It's got Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman in it. It's also got a lot of other good actors in it as well. Let's see. Alan Arkin, Jude Law, in a really interesting early role by Jude Law. Lauren Dean, it was actually produced by Danny DeVito as well, so that's an interesting aspect of it. Set in a future where your DNA and your genetic inheritance determines your position in society and your ability to rise up in society. And one man decides to defy that and take some chances and excel and actually get into the space program to give himself a future and to follow his dreams and his ambitions. It works really well. It's got a beautiful retro-futuristic style about it. There's a rapport between Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman. They were married for a time. And this one has rock-solid speculation as well. It's about the effects of technological innovation, in this case the ability to know in detail someone's genetic heritage in a moment, and that impact on human beings and on the way society develops and the way people live their lives and the hurdles it puts between people and where they want to be in life. Really interesting film, not spoken about enough. Go from there back to 1952 and The Day the Earth Stood Still, directed by Robert Wise, starring Michael Rennie and Patricia Neal. It's a really solid early science fiction movie, a cautionary tale based on Harry Bates' story Farewell to the Masters, which has a very different ending and a very logical ending. It's got Michael Rennie playing Clark II, also known as Mr. Carpenter, alien who comes to Earth and lands in Washington, D.C., and sets a challenge for the human race to stop using nuclear weapons and stop the antagonism which may well destroy the world. It's got that great theremin music by Bernard Herrmann. The special effects are great. Gort, the giant robot, is menacing and very alien. It looks good. The beam that comes out of its eye is good. Ignore the remake with Keanu Reeves. I think that's definitely a poor life choice by everybody involved. But the original gangster, The Day the Earth Stood Still, stands up today. It really has boldness about it, which was kind of unusual for a studio film of the 1950s. It still didn't have the proper ending, which is the ending to Harry Bates' original story, which you can look up for yourself, but it's still a solid science fiction movie, and it shows one of those moments in early cinema history in science fiction where a studio respected science fiction as a genre. and I love that. The fourth one I've got for you is a late George Pell production for MGM, directed by his collaborator Byron Haskin, based on a novel by Frank M. Robinson. And it is The Power, starring George Hamilton, Suzanne Pleshette, good cast in this one, Richard Carlson, Yvonne DiCarlo, Earl Holliman, Gary Merrill, Barbara Nichols, Arthur O'Connell, Nehemiah Persoff, Aldo Ray, and Michael Riddy. It's about an institute which is studying the limits of human endurance for space programs and other things. It becomes obvious to everybody eventually that there is a superhuman intelligence among the people who are involved with this institute. And that superhuman intelligence is protecting itself, undermining other people. It's killing people as they almost discover who it is. Really great film. George Hamilton, of course, is such a bland leading man. I think somebody like George Maharis would have been a better choice for it. I think Maharis had a kind of grittiness that George Hamilton absolutely lacks. Suzanne Plechette's good as the other lead character and the mandatory love interest in them. It's got some beautiful George Pell moments, including a bit of stop-motion animation used really well. And it goes on a crazy, dangerous roller coaster ride where the antagonist who is chasing the heroes has the ability to change the personalities of people. It has the ability to kill them at a distance. It is a very dangerous human being. And The Power probably could use a remake. It's one of those science fiction movies I wouldn't mind seeing a good remake of. But I love this one. I love the artwork too. I've got very similar artwork on the Australian debut poster of this movie, and I like it a lot. The music's really good as well. So it's one of those kind of hidden gems. MGM was having some financial problems at the moment, and it didn't really promote a lot of its more interesting B-picture films as much as it really should have. The Power's one you should check out if you haven't already. And The Power's one you should check out if you haven't already. I've spoken about this one before, and I'll speak about it again. It's solid. 1965, Mario Bava, Planet of the Vampires. Beautiful Mario Bava, using resources really well. Limited sets, limited budget. But he creates an interesting, creepy space world where two spaceships have crashed on an alien planet, and the crews encounter an alien entity is taking over the dead bodies of their crewmates. Mario Bava's film is such an influential one. It influenced Alien in a lot of ways. And it has such a beautiful, eye-poppingly colourful production design where it uses hanging miniatures in the foreground to show things. It uses lights and fog and mirrors and all sorts of stuff to give us a freaky alien world, and has that beautiful eye-popping space thing that the Italians did in the 1960s, where their space landscapes look really different than anything else you are seeing anywhere else in the world. If you haven't got a copy of Planet of the Vampires and you collect physical media science fiction, you need to get it. I can rewatch this one just for the visuals, let alone the costumes and the plot. It really works for me, and I love it. I thought I'd have to throw in one Universal Monster movie science fiction film for this. I'd be remiss if I didn't, and I decided on this one from the 1950s, Jack Arnold's Creature from the Black Lagoon. I've actually got the box set there, which also has Revenge of the Creature and The Creature Walks Among Us, but I like the original movie the best of the three. Of course, it stars Julie Adams, Richard Carlson, and it gives us the Gill Man, of course, Riku Browning, who did the underwater swimming sequences as the Gill Man, recently died, so all credit to him for what he created. This gives us an alien monster which is understandable, comprehensible, and very creepy as well. Even though it was shot on backlots, it gives us a sense of place really in a fascinating way. And the design for the Gill Man as well was something very special. And I like this dead symbol case. I like this dead symbol case on the DVD as well. It's not quite a steelbook, but it's very kind of solid and has some details on the back. And there are a lot of extras on this one as well. I don't think it's as complete as a Blu-ray would be, but for my needs, this particular edition, I picked this one up not too expensively. And again, this is one that's got a high rewatchability. It has a high rewatchability. It's just one of those joyous classic science fiction horror films, which again took the genre seriously. Finding those older science fiction films that take science fiction seriously. But The Creature from the Black Lagoon I love. It was one of the iconic movies of my childhood. Didn't get to see it until later, but it was the one people always talked about because they saw it in Famous Monsters magazine. They knew about the Gourmet before they ever saw the film. And it really delivered when I finally saw the film and saw that kind of subtly erotic thing, which made it even creepier in some ways, while the monster swimming below Julie Adams swimming across the surface of the water. It does have a strange and transgressive eroticism about it too, which is kind of fun and kind of creepy at the same time. While we're on classic 50s, I've talked about this one before and I will talk about it again. Forbidden Planet. Can't go past it. Influential as hell. Leslie Nielsen, Walter Pidgeon, Anne Francis, Earl Holliman, Jack Kelly, Warren Stevens. It's just the space opera, the one that influenced so many things that came after it. Took things seriously. MGM threw a lot of money into it. Production design is great. The architecture of Morbius's house and also of the wonderful Krell underground laboratories. It's a science fiction pulp come to life. And this version is the one that I really love because it also has The Invisible Boy, another movie with Robbie the Robot in it. There are some kind of cringy bits which are more aligned with, say, armed services comedies than science fiction, but the monster from the Id is great. The Krell labs are fantastic. Walter Pidgeon is really good in this as well. Leslie Nielsen playing the kind of stiff hero, and Francis being the outer space dream girl of the 1950s in some ways. Got to have a copy of that. Got to love it. Now, I thought I didn't have a copy of this, but I am deeply glad I did because this is probably one of my top 3 or 4 favourite science fiction movies of all time. Directed by George Pal again, and George Pal is a movie maker whose work I really love. Starring an Australian who was born maybe 5 or 6 kilometres away from where I was born. Rod Taylor, The Time Machine. A classic film. The remake I don't like as much, even though it does also star an Australian, Guy Pearce. I like the special effects in the new one, but this one has a heart and a core that I really like. George the Time Traveller is an interesting character, and I think Rod Taylor really delivers on this one. And the supporting cast is good as well. Yvette Mimieux, you've got in there. Sebastian Cabot, Alan Young playing Philby, George's friend. This movie's heart isn't the relationship between Weena and George. It's the relationship between George and Philby, that deep friendship between the two men, which I love. I love the fact that the movie went there and gave us not a bromance, but a deep male friendship. Is at the heart of the film in so many ways. Fantastic special effects as well. This one's got a behind-the-scenes documentary, The Journey Back, hosted by Rod Taylor, featuring Alan Young and Whit Bissell. Such a feel-good movie for me. It's the movie that, for me, most typifies science fiction adventure. It has that journey into the unknown aspect to it, and the stop-motion animation used to evoke the passage through time is still pretty good. I think that this one really took special effects as far as they could go in 1960, and it's a movie I have a deep love for. 1961, Val Guest's The Day the Earth Caught Fire, starring Edward Judd, Janet Munro, and Leo McKern, about an era of judgment by the human race where they let off nuclear weapons at the North and South Poles, and they find out that they've changed the orbit of the Earth and it is slowly spiraling towards the sun. Climate's changing, the weather's changing, natural disasters are there. What are they going to do about it? They try to set off 2 more nuclear weapons, but the ending is ambiguous. And this works really well, and setting it in a newspaper office in London, in and around a newspaper office in London, really works. It's a definite hidden gem. It doesn't get talked about as much as many other lesser films, but I like the kind of bitterness of Edward Judd's journalist and the cynicism of his mate, played by Leo McKern, who has a kind of philosophical whimsy about him. Really nice Leo McKern role in this one. And Janet Munro playing the mandatory love interest, but she has a little bit of agency in this one and is much better than a lot of the female characters in this kind of movie at the time. This is the BFI version of it. Really worth having in your collection. It's definitely a science fiction film that needs to be talked about more and appreciated more than it ever is. Next one I don't have a copy of. A joyously groovy looking movie. 1965's The 10th Victim, directed by Elio Petri, starring Marcello Mastroianni and Ursula Andress. based on a story by Robert Sheckley about a future where televised hunting of human beings is permitted. It's such a groovy world that this movie creates. The fashions, the styles, the technologies, the architectural designs. It is a beautifully lavish film. Ursula Andress was never a great actress, but she became iconic for having a bra with guns in it, which have to be painful. I love the music in it. The Morricone music in it really works well. The evocation of a strange, slightly futuristic world, part of which was shot in Italy, part of which was shot on location in New York City, giving it a really international feel about it. It's a lot of fun. I like this movie a lot, and it's such a groovy looking movie that just enjoying the visuals of it is a joy as well. That then brings me to a movie that will probably make a good double feature with The 10th Victim. That, of course, is Barbarella. Roger Vadim directed it. Jane Fonda starred in it. John Philip Law, Marcel Marceau, Ugo Tognazzi, based on the Jean-Claude Forest comic books. And it is just mad fun. Totally peak 1960s. Fantastic production design. Beautiful women. Jane Fonda having a bit of fun and stepping away from the Doris Day-like roles that she was getting in Hollywood. The Mike Curb music in it is fantastic and evokes that period of time in a wonderful way. I just love it. I can rewatch Barbarella a number of times. Of course, you got Milo O'Shea in there as well, playing Duran Duran, which is where the band got its name. You got Anita Pallenberg playing the evil queen. I love the way this film looks, and I love that stylishness. And even if it is like The 10th Victim, style over substance, the style pays off, the style delivers. And it's a sumptuous movie that I just love. I had 3 posters on my wall when I was a kid. One was Billy and Captain America from Easy Rider. One was The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. And the other was Jane Fonda in Barbarella. A bit naughty for its time. I remember people were saying it was a very naughty film. But I love it, and it's just the whole package. The visuals, the story, the actors, the music, just came together perfectly. If you hear noises, Luna is scrambling around. I'm recording this late at night, and she doesn't understand this much activity in the house this late at night. Hey you, let's have a look. Next one. Saw this one on my birthday when I was a kid. Special effects by Ray Harryhausen. The Valley of Gwangi. I loved this movie when I was a kid, and it was my birthday, and suddenly I'm watching a movie that has dinosaurs and cowboys in it. It's got James Franciscus, Gila Golan, Richard Carlson again, Lawrence Naismith. It's got that tiny little dawn horse, the Eohippus. Warnings from the native people that the valley is cursed. And then the cowboys go into the valley and find an Allosaurus and bring it back for their Wild West show. And it chews up an elephant and goes rampaging through a Mexican town. There's so much to love in this film. It's just great. The special effects were fantastic. Not perfect, Ray Harryhausen special effects. I even like the music as well. I think it's Jerome Moross. Yeah, Jerome Moross did the music. I like the music in this one. Kind of geared to a Western theme, but lands the monster part as well. I've got the soundtrack to this one. If you like monster movies and you don't like Valley of Gwangi, what are you doing liking monster movies? It's just a sweet spot. And it's a movie for so many reasons over the years I love. This one I did in my 24-hour movie marathon that I did most recently. It came out of the random choosing in the box. This is a beautiful box set of it. Mothra. I knew I had to throw in a Toho monster movie. And Mothra was my choice on this. I just love it. I love the Peanuts singing their Mothra song. Like Mothra going from a giant egg to a larvae to the flying beast that it is. I even like the political intrigue where Japan's going up against another country which is kind of sort of like America but not America. Inashiro Honda. Fantastic. When I went to Toho Studios, and there are no studio tours as Toho, I just stood outside the buildings. And they had 3 things on the walls of Toho Studios. On the right-hand side, they had a giant life-size almost Godzilla mural. On the left-hand side, they had the 7 Samurai. And if you walk down to where the entranceway is, on the back wall down the back is a giant painting of Mothra. That's how important it was to Toho Studios. Again, this one's got a lot of rewatchability for me. And I've got about 5 or 6 Mothra toys scattered around the house here. I just love Mothra. and I love the peanuts, and I just love the whole package. Getting this one from Eureka was a birthday present from Sally, middle-aged geek girl. I love having quality packages of movies that I really love, and I love Mothra. 2 more to go. The Fifth Element. Luc Besson's The Fifth Element. Bruce Willis, Mila Jovovich, Gary Oldman playing Zorg. Beautiful visuals. It's got that kind of heavy metal magazine world about it. Beautiful costume designs by Jean-Paul Gaultier. Production design is fantastic. Everything about this I love. I love the evocation of New York City. I like them going to Floston Paradise and Diva Plava Laguna. This turns up occasionally on free-to-air television on SBS here in Australia. And I'll always stop and watch it when I was kind of flicking through the channels, which I don't do. I usually stream media from other sources. But when I see The Fifth Element come up, I'll watch whatever's left of The Fifth Element. It's got that kind of addictiveness about it. Tongue-in-cheek, silly, fun science fiction. And you got to like it for that. And even the casting is great on there as well. Ian Holm in there playing a priest. Tiny Lister playing the president of the earth. Just a lot of fun to watch. Even though Luc Besson has kind of proven himself to be a reprehensible human being, I still like this movie. Last one. Very political and didactic film, which was a hard thing to get made in America at the time it was made, in the early 1990s. Made by one of the genre masters who's still around. John Carpenter's They Live. Roddy Piper, Keith David, Meg Foster. Yeah, I just love They Live. And that idea that there's an elite, they're actually aliens, which leads into a whole bunch of different conspiracy theories. But it's got that long fist fight between Keith David and Roddy Piper. It's got that reveal when he gets the sunglasses on and sees what's actually happening with the world. And the aliens are deeply creepy because they are, apart from their appearance, very like us. It's a really subtle alien invasion where basically the tool for invasion is our perception of the world. And that kind of goes deep. It really works. It's the Umbrella Entertainment Edition, which has a few extras. It's got a 2013 interview with John Carpenter, which was only ever shown on this disc, and also a theatrical trailer. Umbrella have been putting out fine products for a lot of years. They've been going for 20 years now. On some of the Umbrella Facebook pages, people are showing their collections, and there's just so many great films that company has put out here in Australia. Definitely They Live. I love it. And I can rewatch it a number of times every year. Probably won't because I want to try to see some new things, but I may make room for this later this year for another rewatch. It's just that good and that much fun. And so that's it for this time around. Thanks a lot for watching. It was fun to watch these ones and kind of put together this list. If you came back to me in 6 months, I could pick 15 other movies. But these are the ones for here and now, which are science fiction movies that I love. Fun, and it was great fun to just kind of make the selections and think about why I love the films. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what your ones are as well, because I want to see what other people would have as science fiction movies they love. I know what some of them are going to be, but if you can give me a few obscurities and hidden gems that you love, I'd really appreciate it, because they're always fun to have a discussion about. You can also support the channel, by the way, by donating at patreon.com/paleocinema. If you can only afford a little bit of money, you can buy me a coffee on ko-fi.com/paleocinema. Got a couple of box sets that are on their way, and I've said that before, but they haven't arrived yet, which I'm really anxious and excited to have a look at. They're things I haven't seen, modern stuff, modern horror things, but they're movies that I really want to kind of dive into and just see what the hype's about. So I'm looking forward to getting a lot of that stuff. Until next time, look after yourselves, be safe, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies. Make a list of the films you love as well as the films you hate. It really is useful to do that. And then maybe in a year's time, reevaluate the list. I may well end up doing that. But anyway, till next time, take care of yourselves, and I'll catch you later.